You keep telling yourself that you're trying to let go, but you know what it was, you know how it felt, you know what he did. Maybe at this point you can even label it as abuse, and yet you're still stuck. You're thinking about him, you're going back and forth. You could be in or out of the relationship. This video is for you. I'm going to show you what you're actually holding on to, why it hasn't let go yet, and why this is the part of you that actually keeps you stuck the longest. So before we go any further, my name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a certified relationship coach. I'm an expert in trauma bonds, abusive relationships, and toxic relationships. I help women exit these horrible relationships and rebuild themselves after they've left. Now, you think that you're attached to him, to the relationship, the history that you've shared, the time that you have spent in this relationship, and everything that you built. So you replay conversations and you analyze what happened and you try to understand him. Maybe you even think you do understand him. He's traumatized and broken and you can help him, you can heal him. You have this sort of sense of the dynamic. And I think that most people think that the more clear you get, the more videos you watch, the more you get your PhD in narcissistic abuse from YouTube University, that's going to create action and momentum for you to get the hell out of this relationship and leave it behind for good. But all of this actually just keeps you focused on him, and that's where your mind is sitting. Now, what you're actually holding on to, there is a version of him that existed in the beginning. You know, the nice guy, the guy that loved you, that you felt so connected to. The way that he used to show up for you early on made so much sense. Of course you fell in love with him. In relationships like this, there is so much being built in the beginning. He's mirroring you. He's idealizing you. There is trust and dependency being built. And that connection felt incredibly real in the beginning and honestly safe. It felt consistent. You don't just feel like those things happened in the beginning and now he's a different person. We treat those memories like the truth. We think that's who he really is and we're trying to get back to that version. But I hate to be the one to tell you, that version is fake. That version did not exist. When he's idealizing you and mirroring you and studying you, all of this eventually gets used against you and you are living proof that is exactly what he did. But if that version of him still exists, then you feel like it's something that you can get back to, and that is ultimately what stays active. What I'm really describing here is called a trauma bond. And for those that don't know, I'm going to give you a really quick definition. It's an unhealthy attachment that exists in any relationship where there's abuse and kindness, and it kind of oscillates. There's intermittent reinforcement. Sometimes they're nice, sometimes they're cruel, sometimes it's just the absence of abuse, but it creates this deep attachment. This is why you feel so addicted to somebody that hurts you. But this version that you met, this version in the beginning, that's not here anymore, right? It feels possible that it could go back to that version because it always seems like he's on the cusp of being that man again. But it's not a memory to you. I think we file it as potential. We live in hope that he'll go back to that version, hope that things will get better if he would just get therapy, get anger management, finally understand all of that. And this keeps the door open. We don't close the door. We keep kind of checking for that version of him and hoping and waiting. Hope is brutal. I want you to take the hope and smash it with a hammer because men like this who are choosing to be abusive, who are choosing to show you two sides of themselves when really it's one man doing one thing, they're doing it on purpose. Abuse is a choice. It's a choice that he's making to behave this way, and it's a choice that he's making to not get help. This all feels so real. I think when people talk about cognitive dissonance and that version of him was fake, it sounds made up. It sounds like that can't possibly be true because you experienced this. This is your life. You can't just listen to people on the internet who tell you that he's never going to change and that that version was fake. But the truth of the matter is someone who is abusive, they don't have to be narcissistic necessarily, but abusive, narcissistic, toxic, they are intentionally showing you this behavior. Everyone has a choice. Now, you didn't imagine this. They created an environment where you felt safe. This mirroring that happens, this idealization that happens early in these relationships, it feels so good and it feels so real. You experienced it. That's why you trust it. And of course, honestly, that's why you're trying to protect it. That's why you want to go back. It holds weight. And for someone to just say it wasn't real, it feels probably dismissive. But they are creating a situation where you feel safe enough to trust them so that they can have power and control over you. And it's not always conscious. I don't think that most of them are strategic masterminds. Trust me, they are just following their instincts to get what they want. They want control and power. This has been studied and proven. So when you're stuck in a trauma bond, when you are deeply attached, you stay in this little negotiation. And I don't even necessarily mean with him, but with reality. Maybe if he would go to therapy, maybe if you explained it better, maybe if he would go to anger management, then things would be better. Maybe if I stopped triggering him. So you adjust your behavior and you give yourself more time and you wait and you're in this kind of paralysis almost. You can't move forward because you don't know. Human beings want clarity. Our brains want clear answers. And this is the complete opposite of that. This is utterly confusing, right? Does he love you? Does he not? Is he abusive? Is it toxic? Is it you? Is it trauma? Is it substance abuse? What the hell is this? He can't just be choosing to be abusive, right? He doesn't know what he's doing. And again, the knowing part, there's a lot of nuance to that. Fundamentally, the short answer is yes, they know. But I think the longer answer gives you a bit more information. It might be unconscious, but at the end of the day, bringing it to his awareness, which you do because you've talked to him about this before. He's seen tears coming from your eyeballs. He knows that you're upset. He knows that you're heartbroken and sad and angry, but he does all of these things anyway. He knows. But here you are giving him more chances and more time because you're holding on to potential and hope. This is why you can't drop it. Because letting go of him is one piece of it, right? Ending the relationship, fine. That's hard, don't get me wrong, but that's one piece. Now let go of everything you believed. Let go of your belief that he was good, belief that you were building a life. That's beyond hard. How do you let go of the future that you built? And people act like, you created this fantasy, like you're crazy. This is something that was built together. You both seemed like you were operating for the same future, right? These guys are so good at future faking and making you think that you're building this one future. You're going to be so happy one day, only if, and that never actually happens. Can you question, were you ever really on track for that? Because I know when I've had to self-reflect on that, it doesn't actually feel like it was real. In hindsight, when you're in it, of course, it absolutely feels real. There's this version of him that you trusted, and losing that is so much grief. People act like when you leave an abusive relationship, you're supposed to be relieved and happy. More often than not, it's confusing and you're riddled with grief and anxiety and desperation because if you're trauma bonded, the truth is all of the hormones are completely out of whack. You're on these dopamine highs when he's nice and you have these cortisol spikes when he's mean and your emotions are all over the place. This is not just emotional, it's also physiological. And I think the grief is honestly one of the hardest parts. It's what you're avoiding. It's what keeps this alive. So there's a moment when things actually change. And I know that's the important part here because we think that if we understand him, it'll make sense, right? You learn what is the trauma bond and what is cognitive dissonance, and you watch all these videos and you make it make sense. You could probably write a paper on abuse. You could probably write a dissertation on narcissism at this point. None of that actually matters. It's a very important first step, but when it stops feeling like something that you can get back, when you sort of are able to step into the reality that so much of this was intentional and that he's not going to change, you can actually shift the focus onto yourself. When you stop protecting the fantasy and you stop feeding it, this is where attachment starts to fall apart and your body starts to let go. And I know that we can kind of get into a more anxious state and this feels awful, but we have to see it as the path to a better feeling, the path to letting go and indifference. Breaking a trauma bond takes an unbelievable amount of work because they're resistant to change. Trauma bonds are often referred to as a psychological phenomenon, and I completely understand why. It's crazy making to love someone that hurt you. But a trauma bond actually isn't love. It mimics love. It feels like love. But it is an unhealthy attachment and nothing else. Another name for trauma bonds is actually called a fear bond. And I really like that title for it because what's interesting is love and fear shouldn't coexist. You shouldn't be afraid to lose your partner. In a healthy relationship, you would be sad to lose your partner, heartbroken, but not afraid. And there is a deep fear of losing this person when you're in a trauma bond, as well as possibly afraid of the actual person and what they're doing to you. Emotional abuse is scary, psychological abuse, obviously physical abuse, but there's so much fear. You are bonded through fear. and bonded through the trauma that they are causing you. And FYI, no, that doesn't go both ways. He is not trauma bonded to you. The victim is trauma bonded to the perpetrator of abuse. So we stay so stuck because we're so focused on going back to the beginning, right? Revisiting all the good things and what used to be, the glory of the beginning and all the good moments. And we use those moments as evidence that the relationship is good. We keep replaying and like, but it used to be good. And how do I get back to that? That was never who he was. So I want you to separate him from the pattern that you see and stop treating the past as proof. It's actually just part of this cycle. And when you see it this way, you're going to finally cut this loop, let go of the hope. Hope is the worst. Hope is the thing that keeps us going and keeps the fantasy alive. So I invite you to learn about reality testing and how to let go of the fantasy of all of this. If there's a part of you that actually believes that old version of him can come back, I want you to really look at how much that belief is actually shaping the decisions you make to stay. So instead of all of this is what you look at, not who he was at the beginning. I want you to look at who he is consistently now. And I know that part's really hard because a lot of people are like, he's not consistent. I hear you, but he is in fact very consistent. Good, bad, good, bad. That is a consistent pattern, right? Hot, cold. However often, however frequent or infrequent, there is a pattern. Look at what repeats. What never seems to change? What are you actually living in? Stay with that feeling. I don't want you to balance it out with the memory of when he was good. Because in the beginning, they're good all the time. And then eventually it goes to the oscillation of kindness and cruelty or the absence of abuse as well. So don't look back and think about all these good times and romanticize them. Stay with the present and don't negotiate what you're actually feeling. Let that be whole, what's happening right now. Because that is where everything is going to get really clear. Stop protecting the fantasy, okay? You use this history that you have with him as proof that the relationship was good or that it's actually love. You've never felt this way before about any person. You feel so attached, it has to be real. It doesn't mean that it's real. Let the relationship be over, even if it hurts. Don't look for a way to get out of this easily. People are always looking for the quick fix, the magic pill. There is no magic pill. There is work to be done in order to break a trauma bond. Now, the method that I use, I call the break and rebuild method. The first step is education and clarity. This is where you're at watching videos, reading books, learning what everything is, learning the names for things, working on resolving cognitive dissonance and breaking the trauma bond. The second step is listening to yourself. And this is where you're processing grief and learning what your boundaries are, learning whatever made you feel like any of this treatment was normal. This is such an important part where you look inward and ask yourself why you stayed and what brought you here, what kept you here. Never with judgment and only with curiosity. Judgment is not important and it's not helpful. So don't look at yourself with any amount of shame and self-blame, just curiosity only. Step 3 of the break and rebuild method is building a future that does not include him. You're building self-love. You're deciding who are your friends? Where are you going to live? What are you going to do? Get a little bit logistical with what's going on in your life and who you have in your life, but also in how you see yourself. This method is very clearly outlined in 12 actionable steps inside the Trauma Bond Recovery course, which is something that you can work through with me. It's a self-paced program that has helped over 4,000 people break their trauma bonds once and for all. You're not stuck because you don't know better. You have all the education you're going to need. What you need is action. What you need is to shift the focus inward and choose to let this go. Choose to work towards learning how to let this go. Subscribe if you're not already. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.